Is this the correct? Can you use that?
Over here, it's better. Oh, it's a little short. That's okay. I can stand up here. It doesn't matter. Better here. It doesn't matter.
Good microphone.
Where's the camera? Oh, I'm sorry. Morning. Hi. Okay, hi everybody. Okay, there it comes. It doesn't work?
No, it's worse than there.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's good. Oh, good, perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay. Okay, hi everybody. Hello everybody, remote. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me see here. Okay. First of all, why don't we start with a report from the remote hubs? Let's see. We have of course people from Latin America, people from India who have hubs already. I think that's it, right? Nobody else has hubs already. Good. Maybe why don't we start? We do the Latin America is the host. So Christian.
So it's very simple. No many things to say so far. That there were more than 25 hubs, I think.
25, 26
yes.
Locations?
Yes.
Very good.
Actually, not all of them on different locations. There are several. For example, we've got Juliao here from Brazil. Their university did one for each session, so there were
Wow.
many there. And there was a university in Venezuela that also did more than one. And others, some of them were the same that did on previous meetings, like the one in Mexico. So, and I would say that probably half of them are new locations, or probably more than half are new locations. And they've been going well. There were some emails on problems with the registration or problems with the mistake at the beginning, but nothing major. Well, that's things that were solved immediately.
One thing I'm interested in, and then we can talk about you guys too, which maybe you guys don't, I mean, I don't know what you guys think too. It would be super interesting, I think, is to say these, and maybe it's not right. Okay, maybe it's not, I'll just say it. It's like maybe say these ideas or these contributions came out of remote hubs. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe it's too soon or
Yes,
not right or.
I'm not aware of any specific proposal document
Yet.
contributions so far from a remote hub.
Okay. So what hasn't worked sounds like initially some little problems with getting started.
I would not say that there were things that didn't work. We learned from several from previous hubs. For example, something different we did for these ones, we tried to register all the participants on the remote hubs. That's why we ended up having many more remote participants. So, because before that, we just registered the one that was with the computer and not the ones that were attending. So now we asked all of them to register. And that's why the registration keeps growing, because for the hubs that are having, for example, sessions that were having sessions yesterday, those remote participants registered yesterday when they attended the hub instead of in advance.
That's good though. I think that's good. Okay. Yeah. Alvaro, you want to say? Yeah.
Yes, Alvaro Rotana, Cisco. I just want to add that as Kristen said, maybe half are new, the other half are old. I think the important thing about that is that we're starting to see continuity.
Perfect.
It's not just new people coming, which is great, but it's the same people. I was going to say old people. It's the same people coming. It's following some of the same topics as well. So we're starting to see some continuity, where especially at some of the universities like Mackenzie in Brazil, that they keep attending the same working groups. So they're starting to form a community there that they can talk to each other and eventually have ideas and hopefully contributions as well.
That's very, very important. So who wants to talk from India or whoever people? Harish or yeah.
Hello. So it's like from India this time there were 188 new participants, and out of 268 those registered for the first time. So that is what's happening in India, and we have the universities and institutions which are really want to participate, and they are really contributing towards to the activities related to IETF. But now they are understanding because of only of the remote hubs. Okay. And India is very huge country geographically located, so there are around 14 remote hubs throughout the India this time. So it's when we continue it will keep on increasing the participation, and it will help us to contribute all the technical activities related to working groups, and so that is.
What problems are you having, or what hasn't worked?
Actually, it's like the problem is, they know about IETF, but how the working, and for the beginners, it's it's important to understand how our IETF works, and in the working groups, what are the technical, what are the things are going on. So first they have to catch up with this, and after that, so they are learning. So that is the initial problem. At the same time, for example, when it is in Buenos Aires, the time zone gap. So that is again one of the problems. So for the resolution of this, we have divided the participation into two parts. Like those who want to see the recordings, for that I have contacted the Meet Echo team, so they can record the sessions in time, and after that they are giving next morning, and I am sending them the links or the URL so that they can watch. At the same time, those are you know uh, really want to and really interested in the sessions, specific sessions. They are uh, in the night they are logging into the sessions, and they are also commenting, contributing, and learning live. So that is how we have managed this time.
Yeah, I think for everybody, maybe one out of the three will be a very difficult time. That's how it is in the world. Yeah, but you're overcoming network challenges. You're not having connectivity, bandwidth, that kind of stuff. Not really. Then not a problem for you.
For that, we have the labs in India which have the good connectivity. There are some hiccups few times, but it's not the regular thing. So we have selected the place which have the good bandwidth, good connectivity.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Good. It sounds like a lot of things are working. 40, you say now. I thought we have 36. 40?
It's 36 since Yokohama to Buenos Aires. Now, 14 this time.
Oh,
In
14.
totality, it's 36.
Okay. Okay. So, okay. It's going to vary. Each time
Each
will
time
vary.
because of the time zone and
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Sure.
Hi, this is Dhruv from Huawei. So apart from what Harish mentioned, I also wanted to know that there are some other organic ideas of doing remote hubs, maybe between not focusing on the university side, but focusing more on the engineers who are working in various vendor offices and who usually work on the protocol. They are the implementers, but they usually don't take part of, they are the consumers of the standards mostly. So we want them to be involved. So that's one effort we are doing. We had a much better session in Yokohama this time because of the time zones, and this time we are taking it slow, but thanks to Alia for letting us set up IETF Hub Bangalore, and we are starting the process early on to make sure that we propagate it better, have the right set of people involved. One thing which worked for us last time is making sure whichever working group we are doing, we have a working group champion. We used to make sure that there is like a 1 hour session before. So we go through the agenda beforehand, slides are already up. So that helped quite a bit, that
Yes.
people were able to follow what's going on, because not everybody is, like especially the implementers, they usually focus on the part that they're implementing. They do not worry about the whole thing. So we wanted them to be aware of what's happening. And so that has worked. The thing that we want to work more on is how do we get more people involved? Sometimes what happens is, especially the implementers, if they are implementing one protocol, they only are in that one working group, and they only listen to that one mailing list. So getting all the people involved. So somehow in the ITF, we have to make sure that this remote hub things is advertised properly. People who are not in the ITF attendee list and otherwise also know about what's happening. So what we have done is, at least to the vendors, we know at least some people in Bangalore working for each company. So we have make sure that they tell everyone within their company. So apart from the ITF channels, we are already doing, but through the ITF channel also, if it's possible, to advertise this bit more. Now we have 3 months. Berlin is going to suit us, our time zone, very, very well. So we want to have it in a much more organized way, at least in the Bangalore, with a different focus than from the university point of view. So we want both to go in parallel. There are different kind of remote hubs. So we want both to go in parallel. That's what I wanted to add. Thanks.
Let's stop for a moment and talk about marketing, if you will. I know for you guys, for the LACNIC, they had a gal who was doing the Facebook social media outreach. I know ISOC also did things. I wonder if that's something we need to take more advantage of, or at least that to start. What do you guys think?
Something very simple can be done, like maybe have a Twitter account for the remote hub, and maybe or a Facebook page, and direct people towards that. Not, I don't like Facebook as much because now Facebook is making it hard for people to get update from pages. But Twitter, we have a handle, and then if we can uh, post as hubs come online or people want to interact with that handle, that could be one way of marketing.
Say what you did again in the front. I lost the very first thing. A web page, you think?
No, not a web page. Set up a Twitter account that maybe tweets the locations of the remote hubs.
A Twitter account?
Yeah, and maybe people can
Really?
interact with if they want to set up a remote hub. Because now what's happening, that's what I see. Maybe people can correct me. Is mostly it's coming from the people who have been to the IETF. But if we kind of want to make it easy for everybody, maybe set up maybe a small template, and how to is one. And the other thing is that if people want, someone's really interested, because I know at least in Bangalore there are communities like OVAS, Pendal, which are working, which are doing really, really great work in the security space, but they're extremely disconnected from IETF, and that is something that I'm working on. So Dhruv covered corporate and the engineers, and Harish covered um, academia, but also people in the community who are in either of these categories but not completely connected with uh, uh, the ITF community. They have communities, and maybe we can latch on to that, maybe have a meetup. And there are tons of meetups, at least in Bangalore, I know there are tons of meetups related to tech. So we can co-locate with some of them and just make it easy, because just announce and then maybe they can reach us through some channel and we can kind of guide them to set up a remote hub. That would be nice.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I don't think IETF does Twitter, does it? Oh, yeah? Yeah? Oh, let's tweet.
IETF actually does Twitter quite a lot. I know there's ISOC Next Gen, which tweets a lot. So I follow quite a bit of ISOC accounts, and they do Twitter quite well. So
Great, great, great. Yeah, yeah. I don't tweet, obviously, so.
So Greg Wood, ISOC Comms, work with IETF. IETF does have a Twitter account. I would say one of the things to consider balancing is the reach to new audience that Twitter provides, right? So people who you're looking to engage, like the non-academics operators, might be responsive to Twitter, or you might be able to reach them better that way. The thing to balance, I would say, is the fact that IETF Twitter is not an official IETF channel of communication. So I think there might be an opportunity to use Twitter to reach people, but then to bring them into the normal operating mode of IETF, which is mailing lists. So just something to consider.
Sure, sure. Great. Christian?
In the LAC region, something that helped us a lot was to have someone that was already active in social media. So Juliao for Latin America has been very active promoting the hubs and all the activities related with the IETF. Something we learned from that is that the official or the formal part is something that it always being discussed. It's not something that's written on stone. It's something that, so sometimes we made mistakes and we corrected them, related the brand and things. But we try to follow the advices that we've been receiving, and his promotion has worked really well.
So I wonder if we need, one person. I mean, everybody tweet, of course, but maybe we need also somebody kind of central. Does that make sense? Yeah.
That was the case in Latin America. It was mainly Juliao.
Well, yeah, yeah. And then you guys have. So maybe that somebody. Does somebody want to? I'm like total Twitter illiterate. So is there anybody who's totally into it and that wants to volunteer? Vinaya? Okay. Okay. Then we can work with the secretariat, or Greg, yeah.
The only thing I would say is Twitter is definitely a channel, but what I would say is take a step back, figure out who you want to reach, and then figure out which channel actually works for that audience. Google Plus might be really workable. Something else, Instagram, I don't know what, but
Sure.
just think about the audience, then decide the channel.
just to go a little off topic to the social media, one thing which I think worked very well in other contexts is how the open source do work. Like for example, in open source, they have Instacker meetups in India, and they face the same problem. They go all over the world. Not everyone who's working in open source can travel, but they do make sure that they have these meetups, which is sort of officially recognized even from the OpenStack and ODL and other cases. So and they're also sometimes, especially in the ODL, if you take an example, they are implementing ESA protocol. And if you want to hook up with them and maybe one day have talk more related to IETF and the protocol specification rather than just on the implementation. So I think we have to adapt, and especially from the Bangalore and India concept, we thought that open source could be the right channel to advertise IETF remote hubs as well.
Bless you. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, New York, and like Greg actually said sort of what I was going to say, but I'll say it in the sense that, for any of these remote hubs to work, it really comes back to having some kind of, communications plan around who are you trying to reach and how will you get to them. And Twitter is great, and it's really actually typically the success comes from multiple channels. So it's tweeting, but it's also having a Facebook page. It's having, in some areas it's a presence on Google Plus. In some areas it might be a presence in might be setting up a group in WeChat or Line or WhatsApp. So there's a number of different channels and ways that will need to be, looked at for the various different audiences. In some parts of Eastern Europe, there's different services. Russia has some of its own social networks and pieces that are there that may have wider space, as does China, as does others. So I think I don't know that you can get to a prescription other than to say that, groups that are local need to be looking at how do they reach to the folks in that area. And I'm sorry, your name was what? Ruth. Okay. So, to your point, there are certainly in many areas, there's strong developer groups too, which was something we were talking about in the context of the hackathon, reaching out to some of the groups, when we go to some of those areas, but also for the remote hubs, it may be something too that some of the developer groups and the other places that are out there may be other avenues. So, but that's really kind of that stage of, I think to me, it's part one is figuring out, can we do a remote hub and can we create the environment, the infrastructure? And then that second part is, okay, now that we're doing it, let's spread the word.
Right. No, totally. One thing I wanted to just jump in and say before, what we're talking about this, I just wonder, I've always been thinking about IETF outreach, because the second question is, how can IETF centrally support hubs? So that's a different question too. But I just wonder, like I'm working with this FreeBSD dude, and he goes to BSD CAN. And so, might it be interesting to have an IETF booth at like BSD CAN? That's their conference. Because, a lot of people don't know, or maybe we talk about, there's people doing new development of new protocols. Maybe we go talk at BSD CAN. Does that make any sense to anybody? I can't approve the money for it, but might that be interesting? Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, how do you do that? Okay. Oh, John. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Alvaro.
Want me to go, or do you want John to go?
Sure. Go ahead. And then, sorry. If you can tell John that we'll get you.
John, you're going to be next after me. This is Alvaro Francisco. I'm obviously all for remote hubs and telling people about the IETF and reaching out to everyone you want. I think that without a very specific, concrete plan on what we want to do, we need to differentiate between what we do as individuals, as living wherever, as whatever we want to do, and what the IETF is doing. Meaning, there's a very fine line between an official IETF activity and an informal meeting. Right? All these hubs are informal meetings. No one is, even if people talk about protocols and talk about ideas and agree among themselves whether they like the idea or not, there's no consensus, right, in the IETF sense. So I think that is an important thing. I'm sure the IETF as a whole wants to do things. I just think we just need to be careful about that. So just
Now, okay, John, I don't want to lose you. Okay, now, do I just push this thing? Really? John?
Hi. I just want to make an observation along the same lines as what was just said. I think there's a very big difference between outreach to people about the IETF and opportunities to learn about the IETF and actual remote participation in the IETF. And I think the former is fine. With regard to the latter, I'm very concerned about thoughts about social media. They do not create the right logs. I note that no one at the microphone has gotten up and made a one-sentence remark and then sat down. And many of the social media things we talked about, including Twitter, are very, very much extremely short statement oriented rather than thoughtful analysis of an issue oriented. The consensus comment, which was just made, is all part of this. So I'm still not sure what you're trying to accomplish, but I think it's very important to differentiate between more and better outreach and learning about the IETF and active participation in the IETF, although one is remote. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Okay. Christian? Yeah.
Wanted to say something related with the promotion and how we've been doing that in the LAC region, but it's also related to this part of how formal they are.
Yeah.
We, in LAC, we've been extremely flexible on the format of the remote hubs. So it's more what the local organizer wants instead of what we encourage them to do or what we recommend. So in many cases, when they are organized in companies, they don't want to be very exposed to the entire city of regarding their hub. So it's up to them on how they do the invitations, their promotions. Some of them organized hubs and they didn't want to be included in the list because they were not able to receive people from outside the company.
Yeah.
And others had no issues on being on the list as long as we didn't over promote the thing because their meeting room was small. And in all of the cases, we let them do whatever they wanted to do because so far it's not something official. So the only thing we want is for them to remote participate in a more comfortable or interesting way instead of having some sort of procedure or whatever. So going back to John's point, it's ours more outreach oriented instead of IETF process oriented.
Sure. Yeah, Greg?
Yeah, Greg Wood from Internet Society again. I just wanted to observe that I think the question you raised, Nalini, is a really interesting question, but it's probably outside the scope of this conversation. The IETF promotion generally is a really big topic. But with respect to hubs, I think it probably follows the general approach that I've sort of sensed about IETF, and I think it aligns with what John was saying, is that you want to provide some small core building blocks that people can adapt and use and leverage and figure out what works for them and the people that they're trying to attract to the hubs.
Yeah, no, I like the whole building blocks thing. Yeah, you take what you want. Yeah.
Hi, Rich Salzak. Yeah, I agree. General outreach is a bigger topic and we shouldn't talk about it here. Just also to mention, we had a hub going on in Boston right now, Westford, for those who know the details. And I think on average they get about 10 to 15 people.
Per day or per
day.
Per day. Yeah. I'm glad you're here to talk about Boston.
Yeah.
Because you guys are the first one in the U.S. Congratulations. Yeah.
First mailing list. I down here, so I don't.
Well,
So yeah, okay, no, all right, sure. As far as so what had happened is folks at one particular company, name
Juniper.
Juniper.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Who's occasionally, yeah, I know that's really embarrassing. Yeah, they have a little involvement with the IETF. It's yeah. So they had wanted internally to set up a video conference room and reserve it for the basically one room for the 5 days, so that their members could come in, their staff could come in and out. And then what had happened is just as that had happened, just as that was getting organized, I had started the IETF Hub Boston mailing list.
Yeah.
And so it became a good way to reach out to other people. It's the focus so far has been on reaching out to people who already know about the IETF and not bringing in new folks who
blood,
otherwise might
right.
not. But I think that's also probably a good way to also jumpstart other things, which is get some of these other companies who have, would like to send more people, but can't.
Yeah.
And say, hey, look, why don't you host one in your company and expect a few visitors to come in and they can register ahead of time and so on.
Yeah.
I think the other ones are also great and probably even more important to the vitality of the organization. But this is a way to start to also, if you've got experienced IETFers doing this stuff, they might be more scented to help work on the tooling and make things easier, because they'll know that they'll appreciate the difference between there and remote.
Sure.
Well, gee, we really need a better feed. We need something other than a push button, whatever it is.
Sure. Sure. The feedback loop is very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stan York, and because I've been remote a number of times, it's why I champion some of these things and Jabber and stuff like that, and looking at the list of who's there and seeing Dave Crocker, who is often at these mics, but I see him remote there, and of course John and others who are tuning into this. I think the remote experience certainly does make you realize how far we've come, but yet still how far we have to go. I guess my question for you to bring this kind of on is there an effort here to try to collect the case studies or information into some kind of form? Or I know, Christian, you had the document that was there, but like I think of what Rich mentioned here out of Boston. I think that's a really interesting model to look at, because if we did have some kind of way to talk to, well, I'll hold that up as an example, because for instance, for IETF 96, it might be interesting to go out to the IETF 95 attendees and say, hey, did you enjoy what happened last time? Well, consider setting up if you've got a video conferencing system or something, or even just a room with a projector, could you set this up at your company and then, bring in people in some of these areas? Because you're right, if Juniper, for instance, has some people who want to follow standards and they can't get to that IETF, but if they could set up a room to do that. And then I think you start to look at, if you can establish that, then you can look at how do you do the outreach, some of which can be social media, some of which can be, groups like Internet Society chapters in that area or region, or developer groups, or other folks that are in that area. But I guess the one question is, is there an effort to capture some of this?
Well, definitely. We've put together two drafts, and we've got a third one underway.
Okay,
we've
cool.
Yeah. Maybe we're not posting to the right list. I posted all the drafts to the IETF main list. Is there if you guys know if else I should post, let me know. I can do an IETF announce, or I don't know what.
Well, I think you're probably better at I'm on the vMeet list, so I've seen them. I haven't had a chance to read all of it. To be honest, I think you can do it certainly to the main IETF list, but I know that the volume of mail there, precludes many of us, myself included, from reading it on any kind of ongoing basis. But
we could, yeah. Well, you know what? We could. I know vMeet. vMeet might be a place that we all can just go to, and everybody can do that. As I say, we've got two: the main one and the Latin American one, and the one from India. We're in process. We actually now sort of even have a template. Now, I know I was yakking to Rich about, I'll give you guys the template and then you guys fill in. like kind of what you did. I mean, it's a template in the sense of this is the history, these were the, you know, various things.
Sure.
Yeah. And then as people come in and as we learn more, for exactly the reason you said, for community memory. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time and things are captured. But yeah, totally,
Yeah.
that effort is underway. Yeah.
And to John, I would just say, you're absolutely right. In this world of media and pieces like that, it sounds like we're dropping out. We're getting dropouts on here. But so in this world, we are certainly in a world where things have to be drilled down. And you and myself, Dave Crocker, some of the others of us who tend to write longer at times are always being challenged to brevity, but also to the point we were saying there, in all of the communications work that we do, certainly within the internet side, there's a lot of what we do in that space, John, is we try to use the social media and others to drive people back to places where we can have longer documents and longer pieces where people can understand more. But there's a whole separate discussion. I think Greg was right. We need to split the discussion about IETF promotion and stuff and park that, because that's a whole other topic that at some point we could have a BOF on, but really more of how do we get these hubs going and going from there. But so you've already started this, so let's go.
No, I think that's great. Okay, so now this is what's, you know, what's existed, you know, what's been done. One of the super interesting things that's happening now, of course, is well, Philippines. I'd be real interested in exactly what stage they're at, but I'm in touch with Amelia. Amelia, I think you guys, a lot of people probably know her. Because I know it's not just the Philippines, it's Indonesia, Philippines. I mean, she's got a lot of islands, whatever. I don't envy her. But the other one is super interesting is Russia. You know, I've been talking to the Russian people, especially here. And that might be super interesting. And of course, Africa is its own problem. I mean everything, I don't mean problem. I mean, everything has their own issue, every region. So one of the things that I'm sort of trying to get down here is when you're starting up, you know, you guys are on your way. So like when we have the conversation with Russia, you know, I've kind of distilled from talking to you guys, like what seems to have worked. And it seems to me that for all of you, you guys had a leader, a core group. It's super hard to do this with one person. It's super hard. I mean, and so if you have maybe 3 people at a minimum, 3 people who are the core group of leaders, and then, you know, you can balance each other. So that, let me go through this and then you guys get up and comment, okay? Other thing that I think you guys have all done is work with you know, whoever your diaspora is. You know, the Indian, non-resident Indians, the people in Latin, you know, who are wherever. And that has been, I think, real helpful. I mean, that's just my sense of what's happened. Existing authors who are either in country or, again, in the diaspora. Having those people come to meetings and nurture people, that seems to have been helpful. A support from the RIR. And I think for LACNIC and also NIXI, of course, Harish is from NIXI, that seems to have been, you know, real valuable to have that. Support from ISOC, depending on what it is, and then support from IETF. So, you know, as I say, again, I'm just thinking, like, if I'm going to talk to Russia, so I'm going to say, guys, look, or there's a gentleman here that we can maybe entice to starting a hub in the United Kingdom. And so, you know, it's like, these are the kind of things you might want to consider. So, comments?
Hi, Alvaro Ratana, Cisco. I was going to say that, you know, that's a really good list. I wouldn't have titled that slide "How to Start a Hub." I would have put something else there. And the reason I say that is because many of the things you put there is what we started doing in Latin America when we found out that we might be coming to Buenos Aires. We started saying we need to tell people about the IETF. And one day we were walking down the street in Brasilia, and we said, well, wouldn't it be nice if people could attend all this stuff remote? And how about if we start talking to people and getting them in different places? So we started doing the hubs. What I mean to say with all this is that we never had an objective to do hubs. We had an objective to spread the word about the IETF and how to participate in it and what we do, et cetera, right? And then eventually, and yes, we had local people, we had people who write drafts, we had people from the region who live other places. LACNIC did a lot of support, ISOC did a lot of support. We managed to convince people from the IETF leadership and other places to go down and talk to, right, to show their faces, et cetera. So all that stuff happened, not because we wanted to do a hub, right? But, and so the other reason I'm saying all this is that the hub in Boston, for example, I see that there's probably a lot more current IETF participants there than any of the hubs in Latin America together, right? And so, in other words, the objective of that hub is different than the other hubs, right? So, for example, they might not need all this stuff because they're already self-motivated to participate.
I'm
So,
totally with you, Alvar.
I appreciate this. All I'm saying is that
yeah.
for us, it was an afterthought, right? It was never the objective.
Yeah, totally. I think what you're really saying is like, if I might, is like, this is actually how to bring IETF to a new region. And the reason I say remote hubs is because people can focus on it. It's very concrete, and really what you're doing is spreading the word about IETF and getting more contributions from that area. But if people can say, oh, we're building a hub, it's something concrete that they can get their heads around.
Right, the hub is more of a result after people know what the IETF is, then they go show up at the hub. Right? Otherwise, I'm not going to go anywhere unless I know what I'm going to go do, right?
No, I know, but you understand, it's like, it's amorphous. It's like, spread the word about IETF, and it's like, people are like, well, yeah, I had this talk, and then people know. But if you're going to be like, well, we're having this remote hub, it's like you got a party, you know, we're doing this party, everybody's invited, and so then people show up. So it's a more concrete thing. I don't know if I'm making sense to anybody.
This is Greg Wood, Internet Society again. So the paradigm I have in my head is that the hub is a means towards an end, and it's one of the means that you can take towards that end, and the actual specific end may be different depending on where you are. So for Boston, it's to let people who are already participating in the IETF participate in an IETF that they're not traveling to. For Latin America, it might be introducing people who have never participated in an IETF to the IETF generally. So I think this is actually true of a lot of things here. You know, individual remote participation is again a means to an end, and that end might be different. So it's sort of a tool. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, it all depends. Yeah, Michael.
Mike Ackerman. I just had a question on the last three bullets. Exactly what does the word support mean? At least I would ask that if I'm someone that's considering starting a hub. And of course, as your smirk indicates, one of those sub-questions would be, is it financial in any way?
Well, if I can, I mean, LACNIC, you guys, yeah.
Work for ISOC, for LACNIC. But anyway, no, our support or the things I've been doing where we didn't provide any resource. So we've been organizing them, running the mailing list, coordinating. As Alvaro said, all the things that Alvaro and others have been doing to engage people helped a lot when we announced the option to organize remote hubs. So as they were already aware and following certain working groups, they just filled a form, and that was it for them. So our support was to make those things, those tools that were required to organize the hubs available, and that was it. There are no additional resources involved.
Yeah, maybe Harish can talk from Nixie. Yeah.
So our support in the form of to provide the space and the coordination basically, and for the before organizing remote hubs, you can say pre IETF training what is IETF and all, so that they can understand, what is happening there. So that is basically coordination, not in term now, not in the financial terms and all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to vary because as I said, I'll take the case of, one region that I'm working with. Their RIR is actually willing to fund, people to come over and talk to their region, which I actually support because it's it's a region we don't have very many people from. And so that I totally support that.
Yes, but that's probably different. We have supported many people coming to the region to promote the ITF, to engage. They get talks at universities. So, but that was in advance. That was before the IETF. We tried to promote. So we've got a mailing list because of all those events. And yes, for those cases, we supported, funded the travels for those IETFers that were willing to help us on that outreach. But as we already have that community for the remote hubs themselves, there was nothing needed, just the coordination.
Right. And so, but if you've got a region that hasn't done any of that, we, first thing, get somebody over. You got to pay for them. Use that mailing list. Yeah. Vinay?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add on to what Greg commented and what I'm hearing from the LACNIC community as well. So I feel that in India, we are actually doing using the hubs as a dual purpose. So one is obviously to spread awareness of the IETF. I see that in LACNIC, they have already done that via other channels. And the reason possibly for that is that at least in Bangalore and some other cities, we know there are already communities that are implementing standards, but they don't know that they can actually contribute to a standard. So we have a large community of developers like that. And the idea is that if there is some way we could channel them through the remote hubs, then they can understand that it's possible for them to actually contribute to the IETF via the mailing list, not necessarily drafts, but comment as through either open source contributions, via implementation, reference implementations, or comment on other drafts, or attend remotely, right? So there is a huge developer community that is doing all of this work, and that is today, I believe, extremely disconnected. So our objective is more also to spread awareness, which I believe LACNIC is doing through other means, which is where there's a little bit of difference, which is region specific.
Sure.
In terms of support, we are also planning a set up a permanent hub at the NICSI office with all the hardwares and all the requirements. So anybody could come in like this room, sit and see what is happening, at the same time converse in both the direction. So that is what also planning, and it is about to, we will complete it within 2 or 3 months.
That is a great segue to, you know what, I'm gonna switch a little bit to something. Hang on a second. Okay. Yeah. That is a great segue to one of the other things I wanted to talk about. Okay. There's 2 things that we're starting in the mentoring program. And the ideas actually came from the mentees themselves, not my ideas. The young people said, we would like this. And we can change the name. We just put out this name. And first one we call preschool. And basically the idea is like, people don't know how to, they have an idea. It's very hard, just if you've never written a draft before, to get started, get going on it. You don't even know maybe if your idea is crazy, but it's if you have some other people that are working together, is a lot easier. And maybe even you get the germ of the idea, you flesh it out, talk to the working group chair, whatever, and say, is this worth following up? But basically the idea is, we can just set up webinars. Everybody you get 5 minutes, 2 slides, and you don't have to have a draft. You just talk about your ideas. You say, I have an idea in IPPM for this, and you have to be, state it pretty succinctly. Other people are listening. You have 5 minutes, 10 minutes for questions. And then you can say, sure, I like your idea. I'll be willing to be co-author. So then ideally at the end of it, you form a team and then you guys go off and work. If you need a mentor to help you work on it, great. You know, we can find one for you. But especially if you're saying you've got an ongoing system, because, you know, the whole thing with, you know, I'm yammering about webinar this, webinar that. Well, it can be hard to even get the connectivity to attend the webinar. You know, even Skype calls, you know, I'm trying to do Skype calls, even to Europe sometimes, you know, it fails. And so let me stop now and see if, you know, maybe, because what I'm thinking is, of course, it'll be for, you know, I can send to 95 first timers, 95 attendees, you know, so on. But will this be something that your remote hub can, do you think it's interesting? And do you think your people, you know, people might be interested in joining such a webinar, maybe once every 2 months?
Alberto Francisco, I would be very happy to attend one of those things every so often. Of course, I won't go to a remote hub. I'll just sit in my house and do it there.
You can go.
Now, I'm going to say this. I think it's a great idea. We set up a mailing list that we use in the region to do that, right? Ad hoc, whenever you have an idea, just talk about it. We've also done several more formal events. We're in the 3rd year this year in Brazil, where we have a full-day workshop that we call the pre-IETF workshop. And same idea, right? People come, they talk about stuff, and we have a post-workshop committee that then can mentor the person. And
Great.
there's, you know, several things that we brought over. So I think it's a great idea. I'm not sure how it fits with the hubs, but I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. The reason I think it fits with hubs, I mean, it's open to everybody, of course, you know, and because you may not have a hub nearby. And in some senses, if you're isolated and you don't have a hub nearby, maybe that's even more valuable. But I'm just thinking in terms of getting the word out to people to say such a thing is available. Because one of the things that I think is super, super valuable is not just finding people in your own area, in your own region, who think exactly like you, maybe, but say, okay, we have collaboration with somebody in Bangalore, with somebody in Brasilia, with somebody in, you know, in Glasgow, and you met from the webinar, you know, and you say, yeah, I'm totally interested in this idea for SDN, for example, because then what you get is different perspectives. And I tell you, for new people, what I'm trying to do for in terms of mentoring is break down the barrier to entry. There's some pretty huge barriers to entry, and I've got some kids who frankly are following me around right now and saying, when are you doing this? You know, because they don't know how to get collaborators. And so from their perspective, I think it would be interesting. But I'd love to see remote hubs. You guys have the mailing list of people who are interested. That's what I'm thinking.
Yes, but what I think that Alvaro is saying, and I share that idea, is that hubs is a component from an overall project where the mailing list is another component and the press school could be another component. So they are components of the outreach efforts or whatever we want to call it. It's not that everything is related with the hubs. Hubs is just a small piece on, and they can have the press school, the mailing list, and the other, and not the hubs. So
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. It's like they're really kind of disconnected issues. They're both good ideas, maybe, but not really together. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
I think I'm going to, Mike Ackerman again. I think I'm going to echo the same comment. I think this is a fabulous idea, and I wish it would have been available to me a year or so ago.
2 years ago.
But my question is whether or not it's out of scope for what we're doing here for remote.
Okay, maybe it doesn't even
if we
belong
water down our
here.
effort too much, then our chances of succeeding perhaps diminish.
Sure,
That's
no,
my only concern.
no,
but
no,
it's a
totally.
great idea.
Yeah, I'm totally up for people saying, yeah, you take that under mentoring and then leave it at that. That's totally cool. I mean, if people feel that way.
Well, and I also wonder, Daniel, I wonder about how it connects to what the edu folks are doing in the tutorial pieces and stuff.
Well, I'm actually on the edu committee when I get a chance to attend, but this is different. This is, well, first, let me tell you, Miriam, I mean, we try to work, I copy edu on everything. I'm
Sure.
actually on the edu committee.
Sure.
And we try to work very, very closely. This is to write a draft. This is
Okay.
not a tutorial. This is like, I got a new idea for a DNS, God knows what all, you know what I mean? Or I
So-
want to do,
So I guess then I'll just echo this here too. I think those are excellent ideas and things, but yeah, I would park that and say that's separate from the remote hub idea. If the idea of this is to look at how do we engage people in remote hubs during the actual IETF meetings to facilitate that, I think that would be the focus area that would be good to stay focused on.
Well, I think what I might do, because these are going to be under mentoring, what I can do is I can email you guys and say, if you guys would like to participate, would like to publicize the webinar that the IETF mentoring team is going to have at it, but it's a totally different thing. Does that sound right? Yeah. Okay, Greg?
Greg Wood, Internet Society, complete outsider and newbie here. But I think that I would just echo what Dan has said, is that I think actually from the outside perspective, someone who's new doesn't care what the source is, but once you understand a little bit, and to your point, Nalini, it'd be really good to be super coordinated with the edu team, because their charter is to do exactly what that sounds like.
Really? To help to write a draft together?
To help participants be more effective in the work of the IETF. That's their draft, or that's their charter, which I presume would be including running a draft. So, I mean, I don't think there's turf wars here, but I think from an outside perspective, it's just important to be coordinated, because it can get confusing otherwise.
Well, I actually wanted to merge with the edu team. You remember that whole chaos. I don't know why we're not merged, but yeah, totally. If they want to run it, in fact, I could not be happier, frankly.
Just another idea. I like the idea of preschool again. I have the same comments as others that I don't know if it fits with the remote hub. What would be nice is to have like a starter pack where people can, we can direct people like we do today.
Yeah. No, I like getting started in the IETF guide. Something, yeah. You mean? Okay. All right. We need to, maybe we're getting a little far afield here, because it sounds like, yeah. All right. Okay. Let me go back to one thing that I only have one topic. This is one that the reason I bring up sister hubs is because for some of the newer hubs that are forming, they actually, I almost feel like it's kind of like an adopt a hub thing. Some of you guys who are more experienced, and maybe who even have more experienced participants, some other regions of the world could use a little helping hand. And that's the only the reason I bring it in. Yeah. So I don't know what you think. I mean, and I don't know if it needs to be formal or, the only reason I say formal too, because nobody likes to kind of say, I could use a helping hand. They do. I don't know. I don't want to babble, but you see what kind of the thing that I'm trying to do is kind of help each other.
I think the first thing, Daniel, the first thing you need to do is get, we've started to get hubs going. I think right now the stage is that, start to, lay out the ideas of what works, the plans, the drafts are out there. Start to encourage people to create hubs. And it may be that, I don't know, is there a mailing list for the leaders of individual hubs? Is there one of those yet?
Well, we all are supposed to talk through vMeet. We can set up.
Well, but what might make sense, so here
Yeah.
would be the suggestion to go with that one, is
Yeah.
if there's an identified leader for each hub, so there's somebody for Boston, for Bangalore, for whatever, each of the different areas, if you have those people, for, IETF 96 is coming up, and so for everybody who's going to do a hub, you get the main contact or contacts. I mean, it can be whatever, however many people are there. Get them onto a mailing list where they can then be aware of what's coming up, and potentially they can then share with each other, what are we doing? What's Boston doing? What's Bangalore doing? What's, Buenos Aires doing? And share that information on that list. And then it also provides a way that you, or whoever's kind of managing the hub program from the center part, can be able to reach out to those remote hubs and let them know. I see Alexa's here. She could be able to go and email out to the hubs and say, hey, we're going to be doing a test of remote software at this particular time or something, and be able to let them know what's going on, with the live streams that we do through YouTube that I'm sending out to the attendees and stuff. I could send it out to the remote hubs and just make sure they're aware that on these particular days, above and beyond Meet Echo will also have these particular live streams that they could use if they want a higher definition, video stream, that type of thing. So I think having that, if you have somebody identified for each of those hubs, this sister hubs idea will kind of naturally come about organically, I think. And then if you do this for a couple of IETFs, I'm going to mess up your name again. Dhruv. What Dhruv said was that, no, it wasn't Dhruv. It was, who was the one saying there was a, or maybe it was Alvaro. Said that there's a couple that are starting to always come together.
Yeah.
And maybe
Alvaro
it wasn't Dhruv. I'm sorry.
No, Alvaro was saying that, yeah.
Somebody was saying, that, and maybe over time, if you do this in IETF 96, 97, you start to find that somebody, the Bangalore group or whatever, or is always going to be together. Then maybe they start to be the one that, by virtue of their success, they start to be able to advise other people about what happens. So I think this may be too early to formalize. I would say let it grow organically, but provide some mechanism that the hub leaders can be aware, both a broadcast mechanism but also among each other. And so, like Rich's folks can say, here's what worked for us.
I think that's great. A remote hub leader list. Does that sound like a good idea? Yeah.
Yes, in our case, we do create that list for each meeting, because as not all the previous hubs always organize a new one. We try to update that list and do not send emails to everyone. But yes, in our case, as I said, the hours are very simple, lightweight. There's no need to coach among them, because
it depends on the hub.
Yeah. But I agree on the organic lead. Or group of
Great.
leaders and things like that.
Good. Rich?
Yeah, hi, Rich. I think it's a good idea to have some kind of coordinating list. Don't call it leaders.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
Chairs is a common term around here.
Chair, yeah. I gotta run. Okay, thank you, Rich. I'm going to send you a template. Okay, all right, Michael? Or 9:30. Okay, well, great. Well, anything else? Otherwise, gosh, you know what? I think I have everybody's email anyway, but maybe just sign real quick, and then at least I can send the minute. Michael's been taking minutes. We can send the minutes out and action items. So if we left anything out, then we can do that. And then, and I suppose, the leaders list is an interesting one. I mean, or whatever. I mean, because we need to have more discussions, because probably anybody who's interested in the growth of remote mean, like maybe everybody wants to sign and just lurk, see what's going on. Yeah. Harish.